here. Products have meaning embedded in them when they're the best. Well, let's dive into our topic for this morning, which is positive consumerism. And I am really pleased to welcome Sandy Skees and Champagne Graves. Sandy, we'll begin with. She's the executive vice president of Porter Novelli global communications firm. She is a veteran of understanding the positive value that sustainable practices can have on brand value and success in the marketplace. She's been doing this for a number of years. I won't say how many years because I'm always going to say how many years I've been doing this.
All right.
But there you have it. And she has been very active with Sustainable Brands, which I think is the finest organization drawing together retail and consumer brand leaders for good purposes anywhere. So, and she's going to be sharing with us some of the insights from her book, Purposeful Brands, as well as some insights from recent studies that she has been a part of. So welcome, Sandy. And I'm going to start with a question which you can ignore and say what you want to say or answer as
I
you.
will be happy to.
How do consumers perceive brands that are actively advancing sustainability practices?
Our research, which I will start by saying, and I'll pop a link to the research in the chat. We have a report we've done for 8 years called the Reputation Ranking Purpose Premium Report. And the title should tell you that purposeful activities, and I use purpose broadly as the promise that a brand makes to take responsibility for some part of the commons,
Yes.
right? The commons are the things that all of us depend on, but none of us own. And so my expectation, it goes back to the way you opened, Bill, which is business at scale is the single biggest lever we have to creating a thriving environment and an equitable society. Period, stop, I like to say. So do sustainable activities, whether that's your environmental programs or your social programs, if you're a brand, if you have a commitment that you are consistently operationalizing and talking about, does it benefit the brand? The answer to that data-led answer is yes. We've seen, and what we do every year through our Reputation Ranking Purpose Premium report is survey close to 8,000 US citizens. This year we added about 3,000 in the UK. We give them 200 brands and we ask, have you heard of this company? And when they say yeah, and these are all randomly cycled through, right? So yeah, I've heard of that brand if they've got a 30 to 60% familiarity. Then we start asking them a bunch of questions about the reputation of that brand. And we ask them in 3 pillars. There's 17 drivers that consumers rank brands. That it's everything from the quality, like is the company well run? Are there trusted leaders at the helm? Are products fairly priced? But then we ask a lot of questions. Are they environmentally responsible? And we define what we mean by that. Do they have programs that are making the environment and taking care of resources for the planet? Are they an inclusive company? Do they value diversity? Do they show up as an advocate around issues and speak in support of issues? And we ask consumers to rank a brand across those 17 things. And we see over and over and over again that those 7 purpose drivers around environment, social, advocacy, and philanthropy give a lift to reputation more so than a reputation around innovation, creativity. Quality, of course, is table stakes. But after that, when a company can demonstrate, and this is true not just for the Patagonias and the REIs and the North Faces of the world, it's also true for, in the year of the pandemic in particular, Lilly was our top rated, had the highest reputation score. It was because of the work they'd done on the vaccine. And all the companies who ranked the highest that year were the ones who were getting credit for taking good care of their employees, during the pandemic. Then we saw last year the number one ranked brand was Nintendo. And they have a huge, not only are they innovative, creative, but they have a great reputation as being a gamer for all. They have games that are oriented to family play, to women and girls, in addition to boys. So you begin to see that these are not just the typical uh, sort of born green brands that we all know and love, but when any brand participates in social and environmental programs, it increases reputation. And the last thing I'll say about that is, why does reputation matter? Back in 1970s, brand valuation, right? So valuation on a company, 80% of it was derived from tangible assets, factories, inventory, finished goods, property, etc.
Yeah.
Last year, S&P 500 and other those who study valuation, and that is a financial formula that
Mhm.
can set a value to a brand, right? So this is a financial calculation. 90% of that calculation is in intangibles, of
Yeah.
which reputation is a huge percentage. So that goodwill, that license to operate, that lift
Yeah.
is driven by purpose activities.
Mhm. So 90% of the brand value, when you talk about any well-known brand, an Apple, a
Right.
Coca, anything that consumers are familiar with, 90% of the value is not in the factories and tangible assets of
No.
the company. It is in the reputation.
Well, to be
How
clear,
it
the
makes.
intangibles include reputation. It also includes IP,
Uh-huh.
right? And
Yeah.
it includes um, human capital, right?
Yeah.
So it's the employees who stay, it's the leaders. So those are all intangibles. That's the
Yeah.
90% of the value of a company now. But reputation is a big part of that.
And in terms of the qualities of a company that consumers are attracted to, that attracts them as customers, you say quality is number one, but purpose is number
Purpose,
two.
that's correct.
And then what's number three again?
Performance. So that's innovation, creativity, and profitability. It probably comes as no surprise that consumers actually don't care very much if a company is profitable. I mean, they
No.
do. Consumers, that's not a high.
Yeah,
Investors, sure.
yeah,
Consumers, no.
yeah. Well, I'll want to ask you about the impacts of politics on this in just a moment after we hear
Hmm.
Champagne. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about what companies have done uh, that maybe they could have done better if
Sure.
they had anticipated or prepared for the politicization of things like ESG. But we'll get to that in a minute. Champagne Graves, it is a delight to have you here as well. Champagne has been a long-term uh, student of, scholar of the research in women's consumer choices, and she specializes in the nuance of those choices, getting down to more detail than is typically, I think, used in the marketplace. Has worked with over 200 companies through Boldify and her other associations over time to advise them how to be most appealing to women. Is that about right, Champagne?
You nailed it, Bill. Thank you. My husband can't even do that. So,
Well,
bam.
there's husbands are always we're in a bad position, you know.
Speak for yourself,
Expectation.
Bill.
That's true. Speaking for myself. So,
Sorry about
so
that.
one of the things that we are most, and this dives in, and you're in, feel free to kind of go to a higher top level, but we want to help to mobilize women and moms to partner with brands to drive specific marketplace changes that are good for their kids, good for the planet. Are we being naive in this? Is there a potential to do this? How would we be most successful in partnering with women and particularly moms and their spending power as allies with brands for positive change?
Yeah, so you're right on point with that. When we talk about what unites us rather than what, tears us apart, specifically with women, I can say, especially when we were in the breakout groups, that sustainability is one of those things that unites women. It's just a miscommunication on what that looks like. Because in this highly politicized world, we have a lot of terms being frankly bastardized. They're not the original meaning of things. And so what we are seeing, especially on one side, let's see, this side, we are seeing that they are pulling away from your typical sustainability language, right? And so I think that brands need to do a better job at segmentation, specifically when it comes to women on both sides of the aisle, because it really is a miscommunication. So for example, we're looking at this side, then we're thinking about our crunchy moms. We're thinking about our moms who are wanting their child to be near them within that first 2 years. They're not out of sight of their child. They are doing everything non-toxic in the home, from cleaning supplies down to the food. They are going to local farmers markets because they want to shake the hands of the people making their food. Hey, they want to even know the names of the meat that they're eating, right? So when we're thinking about that side, they're naturally doing those actions. However, they don't like the language that is put to those actions. But when we look on this side, right, they're doing these actions, but it's more virtue signaling, right? Like, this is who I am as a person. This is who I am as a mom. I am creating a better world for my kids, and they're more outspoken about that, right? So these moms both have the same goals, but they are expressing it and manifesting it in different ways. So brands need to be able to speak to that. And that comes from doing more nuanced research. If we're specifically talking about sustainability, why aren't we segmenting more to speak to both of these women? If both of these women are our consumers, why do we have to speak in our terms? Why can't we speak in their terms?
So how do we speak in the terms of those who are in blue America silo versus red America silo? I see among the women and the moms in these categories equal passion to do what is best for their kids, and but different interpretations about what that means, and as you say, different definitions of the terms that are thrown around for this. What tangible advice could you give to a brand about how to stand for its values, but communicate that in a way that either both those communities will resonate with, or communicate it differently to the two communities?
One of the things that I've personally seen in the market that I think is really cool is Jeep. So, just to give you an understanding of my household, I am Black African American woman. My husband is a white man. I know that the algorithm listens to us. I know they see it. So I was able to see two different commercials for Jeep. Now, I believe that Jeep's tagline, something like "Made in America," something along those lines. And typically, especially when we're thinking about the left, just the term America is kind of a trigger, like, oh no. And so what I was able to see is in the more minority left-leaning side of the commercial, it was a reflection of the America they like to see, right? So it was all about community, everyone coming together. There was diversity there. And then, on the other side, it was like, your typical big truck, big band, like Stars and Stripes, Pecaw Eagles, all of that stuff. And I thought it was so cool just to see them do that because it's smart. Just to get the data, it's smart. The message is the same, it's just expressed differently. And when we're speaking about sustainability and we're trying to stay out of the politics of things, what happens is that we need to start listening to understand, not to condone or anything like that, but truly listening and not allowing things to be triggers when we're talking about business. Like, you can do that on your personal time. I do it, but making sure that when we're talking about corporations moving the ball forward and uniting us so that we are making those changes, even on a political level, it's all about the communication. It's all about the research, segmenting those markets that all are wanting that same product, are all maybe even down with sustainability, like what it's about, but for different reasons. And we need to identify those reasons.
We really need to listen seriously and get what the different communities are trying to express without judgment, without allowing ourselves to be triggered, or to jump to conclusions about their depravity, whichever side you is positioned to you as depravity worthy, and then reflect that in our language. So, Sandy, and this is really a question for Shampaigne as well, and for everybody, but we've seen how the environment, sustainability, climate, now ESG and DEI and environmental justice have been politicized and turned into virtues in blue America and vices in red America. What should be the response, and what responses do you see CSOs and sustainability executives, major companies making to this? Should they stand firm and move forward, exactly as they have before? Should they step back away from ESG, or should they do something different?
That's such a complicated question. Let me answer it in a couple ways. The first is, it has always been, in the 20 years I've been doing this work, almost 20, sustainability is the right terminology, right? Because that's environment, it's society, and it's growth. It's always been the triple bottom line, people, planet, profit, right? That's always what sustainability has been about. Once Wall Street paid attention and noticed that companies that had robust environmental and social programs, they were actually better run, better managed. Wall Street said, hey, we need more data on that so we can run better algorithms, so we can pick better stocks, and we're going to call it ESG.
Yeah.
So we allowed Wall Street to hijack what was before extremely business strategic, which is you're balancing environmental benefits, social benefits, and growth benefits, and calibrating so that all three are kept in balance. But we allowed Wall Street to hijack it to ESG. That same thing was true with DEI. Let's face it, the concepts of diversity, we all need diverse, we have diverse populations with different lived experiences. We better understand, marketers have always segmented audiences by different characteristics. We understand diversity. Inclusion, that's simply about making sure people feel like they belong, whether that's your employees or your customers. Like, I see myself in that commercial, just as Shampaigne just said. And then diversity, equity, and then equity is understanding that there are some people who may not be able to access your employment opportunity or your products because there's things that prevent them from. So the words individually still matter, and companies are still committed to them. We're no longer going to use these two acronyms that have been hijacked for other purposes. So the work we do with companies is the programs are still happening. What I will say is that in the face of all that backlash, companies got quiet. And what our research is telling us, which is why I call it the purpose rebound, I was shocked to see from we did another body of research in April. 44% of people said they have boycotted a brand because of concerns about the brand's responsiveness to issues. By May, that had ticked up to 47%. So we're watching consumers understand their power as activists in how and where they shop and what they expect of companies. So my prediction is companies need to be much more vocal about their sustainability practices. And I think what's important to tease apart here is there are environmental and social aspects that you can associate and attribute to the brand, and then the same to the company. And those are two different things. And product marketers like to say, hey, consumers aren't making a purchase based on, if I've got, 5 bullet points I can put on pack, I'm not going to put anything about who made the product or what ingredients it were because I don't have room. I've got quality, I've got price, it makes me look better, whatever. What our research shows is no, in fact, consumers are looking for that information, but you're not going to know. It was exactly what you said. None of us know what particular issue a consumer cares about. Mine may be I am all about fair wages to every worker, but yours might be oceans and are the companies protecting the oceans. And if a company doesn't communicate that about the company's behavior and the product everywhere they can all the time, they're missing an opportunity to get a consumer to purchase more, switch to a product, or advocate for that company, even during missteps, which our research shows if you communicate over and over about your sustainability behaviors and practices, you will get the benefit of all those things.
Now, if strategic level or C-suite executives look at and experience the media, they looked at Disney being attacked by the governor in Florida. Actually, they came out of it pretty well, but they felt scarred by it. And then they saw Budweiser Light be excoriated for a marketing attempt, and then they saw Target realize actual sales declines. It appeared because of the criticism that they had. How I can certainly understand why a very busy strategic level executive would say, let's just cool it on this for a while. And I'm not saying we should cut back in these efforts, but we're not going to talk about them. What counterexamples can you give, or what guidance can you give to these executives? And I'd like both Sandy and Shampaigne to answer this, to guide them to be active and verbal, but safe. Or do they even need to be safe? Maybe being bold and countering the narratives is good in certain cases.
I would say actions speak louder than words. I know Teresa said in the chat Costco. And one of the things that's very interesting to me is I've never seen a Costco commercial a day in my life. But I have heard so much about Costco from its customers, right? One of the things that I saw happen in real time during economic boycotts was people around November were saying, I'm just tired. I'm fed up. I'm going to finally wash my hands with the bad apples, with the bad players, right? So if we're talking about a big box retail, we're talking about Walmart. People were just finally like, those low prices are not enough for me, right? So they already knew the alternative. The alternative had already been doing it for years and years and years, had been persecuted for it. And that was Target, right? The floodgates had opened for Target and they basically closed the gates. I have no idea why they did that.
But so they lost in both directions. They were demeaned by the right, and then they were cast out by the left because they seemed to not be connected to their values.
Right.
Absolutely. Because it was a complete right turn from what they had been doing before. And what was specifically to me more insidious was is that they chose to take away the products that were a part of their belonging, DEI, even sustainability initiatives. And then from there, the alternative that came in from there was Costco. And all of this was driven by consumers. There were no commercial wars. There were none of this corporate chatter that was happening. It was all done by the direction of consumers. And the reason why people have stopped and stayed at Costco is because of internal narratives, not only from customers, but from employees as well. Employees talking about how fast they were able to move up the ladder at Costco. The $1.50 hot dog and drink special that's been around since the original founder. And he made sure that that stayed because he wanted to make sure that there was always an affordable option for families that are wanting to come and stay and eat at the food court there. Those were all values that stayed. And I've never seen it in a commercial, but Costco's actions spoke louder than words, and they keep acting the way they've always acted.
Was their corporate soul in a way that was expressing, not in a mechanistic way so much where they put it right up front, here's how good we are, but behaving in those ways, getting the reputation for that, and relying on third parties to testify on their behalf rather than themselves. Correct. Which attracted customers from Target to Costco.
Yeah, I completely agree with Shampaigne, and I will say one of the things my colleague, a creative Kelly Pitchell, I like to quote her: "When you know who you are, you know what to do." And that gets to the soul of the corporation. Costco knew who they were. They also, and it is, I like to talk about the say-do gap. There's what you do and there's what you say about it. But if you're not doing, whatever you say about it will be found out. And I think that's what happened with Target. When they introduced in 2020 their equity, equality, belonging initiatives, they said, we're going to sign 5-year contracts with minority-owned businesses, put them on our shelves, support them, et cetera. Well, 2025 is when those contracts expired. And rather than renewing them, which if they knew who they were, and this was who they were, they would have renewed the contracts. But they didn't. That's why things left the shelf. That's why the community said, oh, well, this has been performative all along. This is just talk. This isn't who you are. You're not interested in building a supply chain that lifts everyone. And that can be whether you're a Black-owned business or a veteran-owned business. It doesn't matter. If you're going to support underrepresented communities, you stay the course on that, even when your contracts are up. So that's why Target is still being boycotted today, still in a significant way, and it's why Costco's winning. The other thing I will say, and I completely agree with you, Shampaigne, that there were no commercials. But what's fascinating is watch how the earned media has been following this. And very early on, Costco got credit in the media, in news stories, for not talking about its commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, but doing something about it, which was voting down a board resolution and saying, nope, sorry, look, our customers are diverse. If we can't have treasure hunts be different in every store, like that's our business. What I thought was smart about the companies who were able to talk about their commitment specifically to social issues like diversity, equity, and inclusion were the ones who connected it to revenue. The ones who said our business, our revenue, our growth is dependent on us understanding a diverse marketplace, hiring a diverse workforce, and you're not going to come in and mess with that. That's an overreach into our business because it's tied to revenue. Not just this is the right thing to do from a talent and human capital perspective, but you are impinging on our ability to grow, so back out. And Costco was able to do that, and they're on all the lists, as is Delta. There's a handful of companies that are known for having maintained their commitment because they made the connection to revenue.
Yeah, yeah. And where's your best list of those companies, Sandy? I bet you have that in a report somewhere.
I don't. I mean, I know there is a list of companies you can Google, and I think for the most part that I'll find it and pop it in the chat. But I do think of companies like Costco, Delta, REI. There's a handful of others that have maintained their commitments, and that's just social commitments.
Yeah.
Climate commitments are a whole different story, and a lot of companies. Here's the other interesting thing about climate commitments. If
Mhm.
you think about, because I've been doing sustainability reporting now since 2007, everybody set lofty 2020, 25, and 30 goals.
Mhm.
Well, 2025 is when a lot of people's 5-year goals came due and
Yeah,
matured, and they weren't hitting it because
they
it's
weren't hit.
hard.
Right.
And so we had this perfect storm of anti-ESG pushback while
Mhm.
simultaneously the reality of missing some 2025 goals
Yeah.
and the ways in which companies talked about it felt like a pullback or going
Mhm.
quiet. But what
Mhm.
I see in reality is we set all these huge audacious goals. You know
Yeah.
what? We're just going to do the things we know we can do, and we're going to stay really focused. And that's our commitment to the commons is to double down here. So
Yeah.
I actually thought it was good to see companies reduce their goals
Yeah.
to
I think that's a
fewer,
sign
stronger.
of actually being credible.
Yes.
And if you do it publicly, then people will be sympathetic because we all have our New Year's resolutions, some of which happen, a few of which don't.
Yeah.
And so I think people can sympathize with a company that doesn't pretend that they
Yeah.
reached a goal and doesn't just set a goal that they've already reached so that they're sure to hit it, but actually tries, fails, tries
Yes.
again, changes, and so
And
on.
that's that difference between the product attributes and the company attributes,
Yeah.
right? People
Yes.
are much more rigorous in their expectation around products because it's the in me, on me, around me. Just like you were saying, Champagne, it's like I'm feeding it to my children, I'm wearing it on my body, I'm cleaning my house with it. I'm going to be super critical about the claims there. I'll
So
be a little more forgiving for a company that's doing its best.
So I have two more questions, and I would love hands to go up with folks to engage in this conversation. And remember that we're trying to get to impact here. So we are learning great lessons here, but think about how to get to impact. What are we going to impact? So my next question, and I want to keep the answers to these short, even though they can be really long, so we can get to the
Yeah.
hand.
Okay.
But number one, I have noticed over the years that companies, when they still have the influence of their founder, tend to be bolder and more soulful in advancing their corporate mission. But as they get traded over time, acquired, spun off, split up, they become more mechanistic and they lose that soul. How can companies maintain the soul and the human qualities that the Supreme Court seems to see in all companies, but that isn't there in most of them? How can we keep the soul?
I'll answer this way. Go back to the founder's story. Every company was founded by somebody who thought they would make the world a little better by making this thing.
Yeah,
And in that founder's story is the soul of the company
yeah.
and bring that forward.
So the founder's story, I think that is a great approach. If we could make that a standard, a standard expectation so that companies remember where they came from. That's
Mm.
tremendous.
I see David saying in the chat that Ben and Jerry's is an example. That's an amazing example where they're actually working to take their story back right now as we speak.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So I would say, in addition to going back to the founder story, I would say, who are those customers, those first evangelists that made the brand who it is?
Yeah.
Because they have just as much investment as the founder. And so I don't think people well, people. Here I am thinking along the lines as a Supreme Court as well. I don't think corporations really pay attention to their evangelists. I know we spoke about this personally, Bill, but I just don't think they even know where they are. I think corporations focus too much on the negativity. So they're reacting, right? But they're not proactively looking for people that may not be on social media screaming it to the mountaintops, but they are in their local community already rallying, already evangelizing for them. But if
So
you mess
smart.
up, but if you mess up, those will definitely be those people that are front and center saying, hey, this is why this is different, right? And
They
so
believe in the brand and they believe in the mission of the brand, and they feel it as a personal slight when the brand strays from that, which that's what we want to capture. We want to get those brand evangelists who are all into the mission and purpose of the brand and who can help reinforce the people inside the brand that want to represent that brand in their actions. So I'm going to ask a question that I won't have you answer now, but I just want to have it kind of in the background for us to think about. Donald Trump won on the margin of his supporters that were in the MAHA movement, the Make America Healthy Again movement, which is much more about health, natural foods, skepticism of technology, optimism about natural solutions.
Okay, sweetie.
It's a whole different approach. For answering as we go, how do we bring the MAHA community into sustainability? What do we need to say and do so that this is their movement as well as our movement? George Cummings, ask or say what you like. And you are on mute.
Yeah, as always, Bill, this is just awesome. So my question is for Sandy Skees, because at South by Southwest, one of our best partners, I think, and I'm going to call Rockstar Company Patagonia. So where do you put Patagonia on your list?
I mean, I think they are a what I would call a born green brand. They are always at the top of our reputation scores because of their high purpose commitment. I think the thing I find the most fascinating about them is their new financial model, where they shifted all the ownership to a foundation. And I think they're once again showing us how capitalism and the structures of capitalism can be refined in service to our planet and our society.
That's really a great.
Me too. And I'm with Bill, though. I think, gosh, if there's a list of our top 100 performing SD, and I had at one time, and I'm trying to track it back down, the 100 top sustainability officers for the top 100 companies performance things, which is, I mean, a lot of great names, but I guess I'm just saying that list is like the huge first contact resource to say, you're obviously in tune with what we're trying to do. What doors can you open for here's what we're doing. Is there a common ground here? Which of course, for me in the ocean, if you breathe oxygen, you're an ocean stakeholder. So your care, do I know I can show you, whales and turtles with straws, and I can show you 1,000 bad pictures. But if oxygen is not important enough for you to step up, well, okay, how about clean water, to have access to clean water? If those two things aren't worth it to pay attention to what the hell's going on, I probably should just need to move on, but most CEOs get it at that point in time and they open the door to their sustainability. Anyway, long story short, I'll shut up. But yeah, if we can get that list to the think tank group here, I think it would have great value for everyone, Sandy.
And a great book for somebody to write, which with AI, you could probably do it in about 5 minutes, right? Would be to take the top 50 or 100 companies, and title of the book would be The Corporate Soul, and lay out, for each of those companies, what is their soul? Who was their founder, or who was their defining leader at what time? And what was the culture like? And what do they add to the world that is substantive? Many of those companies have kind of forgotten that, and it would be great to put that front and center and just see who is sticking with their soul and who isn't.
I've
The
got a
way
few
I've
of
been
them profiled
phrasing
in.
that, Bill, is
Yeah.
what is their secret sauce? What was your secret sauce that
That's
made
a
you be
nice
a
way to
winner?
say it.
Yeah.
It's
That's a great.
kind of like that, you know.
But soul is an
Coca-Cola
important
knows their
dimension.
recipe. Kentucky Fried Chicken knows theirs. What
Yeah.
was your secret recipe for sustainability so we can clone it for every CEO on the planet?
And companies could fall on and off that list every year. That's the thing
Sure.
that's true. So
That's true. That's true. How
there
can
isn't 100 that are
Yeah.
there's probably 3 or 4 that are consistent, and
Yeah,
then there's
really?
everybody else falls on and off that. Yeah.
yeah,
But they don't make their numbers, there's a controversy, all of it.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
for a
well,
long time, meeting and regulatory requirements was a huge part of the assessment, and oil and gas companies were ranked high because they meet
uh,
such regulatory requirements. So,
they are expert
yeah.
at it. Yeah, really
Yeah.
good.
Well, we all know how what I want to call it viral we can be. One little snafu with one customer goes
Yeah.
viral, and suddenly, nobody goes to your store anymore for 5 years. The
Let's
damage
go to-
control is tough.
Let's go to Larry Lamotte. What would you like to add to the conversation?
you're
And I
muted,
can't hear
Larry.
you. I can't hear you. I'm not sure why, because it says you are on, but maybe you can look at your system there and push a button and reappear. I'll let you
There.
do that.
There we go.
Oh, there you go. Great.
Got
There
it.
we go. Okay, sorry. I pulled out a
Right.
plug. Thanks for pronouncing my last name correctly. And thanks for inviting me.
Look, it was
So,
lucky.
I want to go back to a question before, and I am a founder, and I started late in life in late 50s, and now I'm 66. And some of the things that worked for us, my company's called Recapture It. It's all about recapturing used building materials, which is part of the largest source of waste in the world. So my background was in architecture, construction, and then facilities management. So I knew it all intimately, just didn't know the scale of it until I talked to the EPA and found that out. But one of the things I knew intimately going into this, because I've started 7 businesses from scratch, I've had plenty of face plants. I decided that this would be what we call a non-political company. And by that, I don't mean apolitical, because we all have our politics. I meant non-political, so that anybody coming in could be on the right, the left, the middle, the top, the bottom, wherever they were. And so that's been very effective. I see shoulders just go, oh, drop, relax. When I tell people that, they're like, oh, good. I don't have to have my guard up, or I don't have to be on my game. And that's been helpful. Another thing is verbiage. We are very conscious about what words we use, and we use stewardship a lot.
Yeah,
because stewardship's just a word that is friendly in pretty much most circles. And so we also chose.
Whoops. Now we lost you again. Did you unplug?
Larry, you're done.
I'm back. Sorry. Anyway, geez. So the colors were important, and people advocated for, you got to make your logo green. And I said,
we just lost you again. I'm not sure why it's doing that.
It might be the solar flares that are going on right now, Larry.
Yeah.
Well, we lost power. We lost power this morning, and my Wi-Fi's been weak.
That's solar flares.
No, yep. Well, I think we've got it, and you've gone blank again. So I'm going to call on Susan Levin here. And Susan, what would you like to add to the conversation?
Thanks, Bill. So this is a question for Sandy and maybe also Shampaigne and anybody else in here. I understand that Porto Novelli has long been using social and behavioral change, SBC approaches to having people realize motivation for making changes in certain ways. And so I'm wondering, how might we expand on that, enhance that, be even more strategic to achieve some of these objectives that we've been talking about here?
We'll say that the short answer is behavioral change requires an emotional and a rational argument, but you must start with an emotional argument first. And and then the rational argument can be made. And sometimes in sustainability, we just throw a bunch of statistics at people, and that's why we're not engaging them in behavior change.
Great.
And I think they have to be impacted directly often, right? To
Yes.
realize that
You have to make it
change.
personal, right? It has to be
Mhm.
something I can see in my own experience, which is why back to Champagne's earlier point is we have to micro target our messages because everybody needs a different message.
Yeah. I
And
like
that's
to.
something that a lot of corporations don't find, they haven't found the value in it yet. And it's mainly because they don't have as many feedback channels from customers letting them know, hey,
Mhm.
this is what's going on. This is how I feel. So back to the social behavioral change. In my research, I study emotional markers, intersecting demographics, and gender socialization specifically, as well as legacy consumerism. But that socialization is so important. And as women, we are socialized to overthink, and not just in our work, but in every single decision that we make. And so being empathetic to that plight, especially when we're thinking about sustainability, it's no small thing to take on, right? If we are making our lives sustainable, we're having to basically be inconvenienced at every turn. We're not using single use, we are going to more locally sourced places. What if the farmers market is out of the kind of produce that we like? We're, as sustainable people, we're going to just have to deal with those inconveniences. And so asking a consumer to do something like that is no small feat. So yes, if the ask is big, then the research definitely needs to be more targeted. So I think we just need to do a better job at micro targeting, and then micro communications, right? And so that can happen throughout the funnel. So I think that that's very important.
Like that
Thank you.
combination of of the emotional and the rational. I like to think of it as purpose and power, or heart and head. That purpose is what motivates. The heart is what you seek, and the head is how you get there. So you have to start with your purpose because that is motivating, and then use your power to advance your purpose. Too often, we either just go for power and don't express purpose clearly, or we use purpose to advance power, which is the opposite of what we need to do. We want to profit, and therefore we pretend to advance a purpose in order to profit. But it needs to truly be the purpose that is central, the profit, the power supporting it. Andy Weinstein, and you are on mute.
I think George is ahead of me, so I'll let George talk and then I'll go next.
Okay, George, go
Sure.
for it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Great meeting and pleasure to be here. It's only my second, so hoping to join many more, but awesome conversation. One thing that stuck out to me is the power of selling with a story. So I'm not sure if anyone here was able to attend New York City Climate Week, but one of the big messages was selling with a story. And I think Costco, as we were discussing, does such a great job embodying that. And I actually work with the Costco team a bit, so I'm familiar. They have some water stewardship goals I'm excited about. So I think that right there just goes to show the power a story can have in, galvanizing consumers across America, where they say, "Hey, Costco has values. They stand by their values. I want to buy from them." And then people at Target see that the impact that Costco has on the market, and they say
Yeah.
we need to be doing what Costco is doing. So I think selling with the story and empowering, and for me with my clients, I like to get them excited, right? Like, you're doing the right thing. You have the opportunity to be a thought leader here. Even if other organizations in your industry aren't doing it, why not be the first and really
Yeah.
set, the foundation? And one more thing I wanted to add is um, thankfully, the US, we have different states with different regulations, and there is still a lot of exciting sustainability related regulations coming up, state-wise, requiring large emitters to get their emissions verified. So there's some exciting stuff coming in 2026 and 2027 and down the road. And also with products, environmental product uh, declarations are becoming bigger where these large companies, especially large like construction companies, will require the organization they buy from to get an environmental product declaration to quantify their carbon footprint, essentially. So, yeah, so there's still exciting stuff going on. And yeah, I think these conversations are so important to keep this alive and keep spreading ideas on sustainability and how we can improve. And yeah, sell with the story. It's all about a story, and we learn stories before we read and write, and they're beyond powerful. So yeah, get the emotional side, and then hit the
Yeah.
rational side after. And yeah, looking forward to joining many more meetings, and I'll stop it there. Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here, George, and you're right. That storytelling is a powerful tool, and we need to use it more to draw a broader set of people in. And to the earlier question I asked about MAHA, we've had a couple of terms that have been suggested in the conversations here and the chat: well-being, wellness, stewardship, as terms that appeal to to the right as well as to the left, and that we may want to craft the next generation of ESG around. Gordon Fuller, what do you have to add?
So, sorry.
I'm sorry. Yes, Andy, let's go back to you.
Okay. Yeah, so I have kind of two things. One is on the Maha movement. I think it's sometimes dangerous to try to chase a movement that is not rooted in fact in many cases, because you end up dealing with the consequences that the data is kind of against a lot of their pushes. So I just, there's a little worry about who do you bandwagon with and how sometimes it could be more dangerous and delegitimizing, which the sustainability kind of network does not need. And then secondly, I think one of the bigger issues we deal with sustainability is we paint it as a extra cost to the system versus a reduced cost in the life cycle.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the times we are looking at problems through a very small, narrow lens, and in many cases, managers and decision makers are doing that as well. And so therefore, they're only looking at what is the ROI within this small period, rather than what is the true life cycle value that you get from something. So I think we just need to frame things more on life cycle analysis and make tools easier for people to see it, rather than the short-term windows where a disposable good is cheaper always than if you have a recycled or repurposed good.
Yeah. That's good points, and point well taken on Maha and fact-based. I think the key is appealing to the motivators that are causing people to join up with a Maha community or any other community. I notice in all political communities there are accepted lies. There are kind of accepted deceits that a group of people in an ideology kind of implicitly agree that they're just going to go with. And it's important to still, I think, reach out to these communities and bring them in, because that's the only way that you can sort out what's true and what's not true about what they're advocating. As you bring a wider net of people together, it becomes okay to pull out some of the falsehoods and bring in, more of the facts into that community and more support for that. Gordon Fuller, and let's go kind of quickly here because we are coming up on our hour and a half, and we are going to have to stop at that hour and a half.
Ever so grateful, Bill. Indeed, I'll be quick. I created the Disability History Culture Collective 527 Political Action Committee because there are 70 million people in the United States with disabilities. Then you have to factor in our families and friends who are all in it with us, it turns out. What's
Yeah.
more, we have 80 million people in the next 10 years over the age of 65. We all know what happens to them. And so, from that perspective, how in the hell is it that in the last political election, you never heard anyone saying, "What do you think, Stu? How's the disability vote going to go?" And so, with that in mind, how the hell is it we don't have political power, that the issues of importance of such a group in our society, which are the unprivileged of all groups, completely overlooked and ignored? And that's incredible, as we see with the SNAP thing and all of these things recently. Calibrate, because it's good for visually impaired people. Well, let's get rid of that. And interpreters for the deaf. Hello. So I'm from the side of a desk that says, hello, help us, Political Action Committee, put your name down, put some money next to it. Let's be sure to let everyone know we stand with diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. It's for everyone. It's a global movement. We can't stop.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I agree, and we need to, I think, follow our hearts but use our heads. And when it comes to getting substantive work done, particularly in politics, as we recruit and bring in women and moms and other powerful consumers and voters, I think we need to do it strategically and geographically in states that are swing states, in districts where there are competitive primaries, because if we do that, we can accomplish our goals with 90% less cost and effort. If we focus on those areas first, we can turn the dialogue and shift the power from the war between left and right, which keeps the people divided and unable to govern, to that middle 70% that can actually talk. So, Dave Rice, quickly, and then we'll get everybody in.
Okay, well, good to see you again, Bill. I've missed a few of these lately, and it's great to be back. This is a really great group, and I think the topics are always really on point and very stimulating, and a great group of folks. Just picking up, I'm the president of the United Nations Association Orange County. We're very focused on bringing the Sustainable Development Goals model from the UN locally into our community and beyond. And that has a lot to do with measurements and metrics. And so we're working on an information system to help us with that. But to your earlier question about MAHA, and I did, and you mentioned it, I put in the chat about well-being. I really do think there's a major need for us to hone in on what we really mean by well-being and how to measure some of these factors that would really be a part of it, like healthcare availability, education availability, overall happiness. We know that the U.S. ranks very low in many of these metrics globally, access to childcare, all of these things. So I think the more we can actually identify and talk about those metrics, the more we can bring a larger umbrella of folks into the discussion. So that'd be my main request.
Thank you, Dave. Let's go to Swami.
Hi, thank you, Bill, for pulling all the energies together. It's a great session. Actually, I'm working with Capgemini as a senior consultant, senior manager, and also I'm doing pro bono consulting, helping various nonprofits. Thing is, unfortunately, corporate world is thinking that any spending and overhead costs on sustainability is about an additional overhead cost, but they are not understanding it is kind of boost the bottom line, because we need to preserve the natural resources, and also the consumer should be wealthy and healthy. Then only they can afford the products, spend the they can afford on their products. So these sessions will surely be helpful if we can align our the pros and cons with UN SDGs. That will really helpful to have a better visibility and a strategic thing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And I know Theo is a master storyteller. You have some suggestions for us, Theo, about how to tell these stories best?
Absolutely, Bill. Thank you so much. We got a story coming out with Terrell Jones of Sky H2O about how he is fighting in Memphis, Tennessee to use his water from air, large scale industrial machines to bridge the AI water gap and prevent the kind of pollution that we're looking at, the fallout from these AI centers dumping into these communities. And so I'm in the midst of editing that right now. Be on the lookout for that if we should happen to send that out to your email. And the next
Yes.
thing is about the Maha movement. I was there from the beginning. I know the guy who coined the term. And I think that when it comes to the quote misinformation and anti-science perspectives of that community, we have to look at the fact that there have been large gaps in the information given to the public by the literal medical establishment, and that their concerns are common to all of us. Cleanliness, lack of pollution when it comes to the health of our children. And that if we stop at they're just anti-science and don't really look at the root causes of what got them to distrust the medical establishment, we may
Yeah.
be laid victim to the thing that caused them to be the way that they are in the first place. And so that's what I wanted to add to that. Be on the lookout for the Sky H2O story.
Good, and we will circulate that to people so they can see it. And I'd say I have been shocked at particularly early on the way. Now I don't want to defend any misinformation and deceptive non-scientific assertions and so on, but the way the media in Blue America described RFK early on consistently absolutely condemning him from the beginning, just in their taglines about, the discredited, anti-vax extremist, obliterated the opportunity for a frank discussion about where there are abuses in the medical system, and there's a lot of value there. So it's listening to what's underlying. I think that's so important. Leah
Well,
from
he did lead
Yeah,
to very specific deaths due to his anti-vax policy. So like
Yes,
in
yes.
Samoa,
I'm not defending,
he's
and I don't want
literally
to get
responsible for the death of tons of kids. So it's
and
like
yeah, and so is every leader that is in a position of power. I'm not excusing that at all. I'm saying that we need to listen to these different voices so that we can discern what they're really trying to say. And then when they're wrong, then we have the opportunity to change it. But if we just don't listen, don't engage, then we lose the ability to change. Leah.
yes. It's a great pleasure to join this group. I love the conversation about collective action of consumers to drive change among businesses through market demand, something we work on at WRAP. But I also wanted to highlight the inverse, the power of businesses to also influence customers and consumers to shift their own practices. And so just as one example, we're working with Amazon. We've created circular living standards, which are now indicated on Amazon when you're shopping as part of their Climate Pledge Friendly certification. So customers can find items that are reusable, refillable, pre-loved, and durable. And also working with supermarkets to put signage up in the store about how to store food to reduce wasted food. So kind of some examples of the power of businesses to also generate consumer sustainable practices. And I'd love to talk with anybody more about that, including at EarthX coming up.
And Leah, we want you at EarthX, and we want to give you a voice there, and we want to know more about rap. So we will certainly be doing that. Aria.
Hi, yes. I wanted to pull things back to the conversation about Maha. One of the things to me that is a real connection to the world we're living in right now, where a lot of fossil fuel companies have so much power that they have really forced out a lot of renewable energy companies. And there's this false, ideology about it being too expensive to, support renewable energy when we're subsidizing the fossil fuel industrial complex at, over $1 trillion every year. And there's this inherent corruption, as I see it, within the pharmaceutical industry as well, which has forced out a lot of conversations about the way we eat and the solutions in the way that we live and supplements and studies that aren't done on supplements, so that instead of actually saying, well, let's look into that and let's do a study, they say, oh, that's unproven, that's completely bunk. And so there's this false sense of discrediting things that haven't actually been discredited. And so that's why so many people have gone to MAHA, is because of that suspicion. So, I think there is, I would really love to include these people by this greater conversation about how the money has led our conversation in media for so long, our conversation about what's acceptable in terms of solutions, what's not acceptable, and that it's led us down a very unhealthy path. Not good for our finances, not good for the future of the planet or our personal health or the health of the planet. It's all connected.
It's amazing what kind of the choreography of culture since World War II, since the military-industrial complex, and so on. There's a particular way of looking at the world that is kind of imposed on us, and not by evil actors for the most part, but by people who are just following the dots that were written out a long time ago. We have run out of time, and I have another meeting that's coming up, so I need to depart. I want to thank everybody for your discussions today. We are going to take this and apply this knowledge, but all of you, please sign up for EarthX today after this call, so that you get this super cheap. It's like $399, for the entire conference right now. And we'd love to have you there. We want you there, and the earlier you make the commitment, the more we will be able to serve you there. So sign on, or just let us know if you want to sign on, and we'll make it happen.
Thank you all for being here. This is the last meeting of the year. Thanks to those that have stuck it out. And if it's your first meeting, please keep on coming. We will be continuing to meet monthly in 2026.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful holiday and stay in touch.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all. Happy holidays.